Guy Giorno is a legal advisor to the We Charity. He's also a former chief of staff to Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Hi, Mr. Giorno. Good to see you. Thanks for making time for the show tonight.
Oh, great to be here. Thank you.
So my understanding is that the Kielburgers legal team has sent a response now to the committee based on the summons. What are they saying?
Within the last hour, just before 5 o'clock, the We's lawyer replied to the committee, again setting out, which he's done in past, objections to the unfairness of a proceeding in which serious allegations have been made and are now before the RCMP. Serious tax allegations have been made or before Canada Revenue Agency. They've been made, by the way, by the members of Parliament who sat on the same committee that's issued the summons, and outlining why, while we've always been open and wanted to discuss these matters transparently, there's a fundamental unfairness to having allegations which are already before law enforcement authorities also considered in a duplicative process before members of Parliament. So the letter sets out that the witnesses will attend with counsel, but will obviously not, as a matter of fundamental fairness, be expected to address things that are in the hands of the police and other authorities.
So before we dive into that last part, just on the idea that they actually have agreed to come with counsel, is that a change of heart? Because my impression had been that they were planning not to appear, that they really thought it was unjust. They did not want to appear before a committee under any circumstances. Is it the summons that made the difference?
No, this is something that's actually been on the record before the committee. There was correspondence well before, in advance of today's meeting, talking about the desire to attend. In fact, actually offering up an additional witness who could provide some perspective. But what changed things dramatically was referrals by members of Parliament to the RCMP and an income tax matter to Canada Revenue Agency occurred last week. And coupled with some social media posts by Mr. Angus, in particular, Mr. Barrett as well, indicating they expected the Kielburgers to come and talk about the allegations, the very allegations that were already with law enforcement. And no Canadian, right, should be expected. If you've got an allegation about you, which is with the police, you talk to the police about it. If you've got an allegation about you with Canada Revenue Agency, you talk to Canada Revenue Agency. But no Canadian is expected to talk to the police and also answer questions to your Conservative, Liberal, New Democrat member of Parliament about the same things the police are already investigating. That's just not fair. It's not how we do things in Canada.
Do you have any confirmation, though, that the police and or the CRA are actually investigating?
So what we do know is that Mr. Angus has written to the RCMP, Canada Revenue Agency. He has tweeted about it. Previously, Mr. Barrett had written to the RCMP. In fact, there are in total 6 law enforcement bodies that members of Parliament have involved. The RCMP, Canada Revenue Agency, Privacy Commissioner, Official Languages Commissioner, Commissioner of Lobbying, Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. The Conservative Party has sent referrals to all 6 of those agencies. The NDP has sent referrals to 4 or 5 of those agencies. So it's all before them. And certainly, I think any Canadian who would have a member of Parliament send allegations about he or she or it to the RCMP on member of Parliament letter would treat those seriously. So until it's indicated that that's something that the RCMP are not looking into, but I think they would take a correspondence from Mr. Angus or any other member of Parliament quite seriously. We've got to assume that it's with them, and it's not right to have to answer to those allegations in another forum. A political forum, a partisan forum.
Is it, with great respect, though, Mr. Giorno, safe to assume that they are being investigated? I can think of other instances, for example, in other committees with Jody Wilson-Raybould and looking into that, and then other members asking the RCMP or a referral being made, and we were unaware if an investigation had taken place. We don't know that the CRA and the RCMP are investigating these latest allegations. Isn't it fair for the committee to also want to take a look at them without that?
No, exactly. It's actually entirely unfair to do that. I mean, we have a principle in Canada that there's a separation between law enforcement and elected politicians or partisan politics, right? This isn't the United States where they elect sheriffs, they elect prosecutors, they elect judges. if you want to, take stand for if you believe that getting elected means you get to do your own law enforcement, then that's very much a United States concept. That's not the Canadian tradition. The Canadian principle is the separation of politics from law enforcement, and getting elected doesn't entitle you to issue search warrants or seize people's or to do your own law enforcement. So no, it's very unfair. And if members of Parliament placed allegations before the RCMP, which they did for their own reasons, then presumably they had faith in that law enforcement process. They think something of that. And until there's any indication that process is not continuing, obviously we would expect to follow that process. It's the Canadian way. Right? We let law enforcement do the job of law enforcement. We let politicians do the job of politicians, and they're not the same. I heard the testimony to the arguments made in committee today, but committee members who believe that a historic right or privilege of Parliament is to do its own law enforcement investigations reflect a misunderstanding of the role of Parliament and our Canadian and British parliamentary tradition, because that's not what Parliament is all about.
But they're not necessarily investigating along the exact same track. And give me a second here, Mr. Giorno, because the committee is tasked with figuring out, okay, were there ethics breaches here by the government? Did they do their due diligence in awarding this agreement for this student program? To do that, don't they have to get to the bottom of allegations that they've heard? Not necessarily decide whether a crime was committed or ascertain the criminal level of what's being alleged, but rather make a determination about the organization itself and whether or not ultimately the government needs to be held accountable for its actions. Why can't that happen at the same time as a possible, not definite, possible investigation by the RCMP or another body?
Sure, because the members of Parliament on the committee themselves have, in their own statements, indicated that they're going to be conflating the two. Mr. Barrett, on Thursday, posted on his website a statement that the We organization, which is involved in investigations, has refused to testify, so we're pursuing a summons. So he's the one who linked the investigations to the summons. So he's conflated the two. Mr. Angus of the NDP on Wednesday tweeted twice that he wants the Kielburgers to come to committee to answer the allegations. So he's put allegations to the RCMP, to CRA, and then says, you come to committee and answer the same allegations.
But they're not trying to figure out if a crime was committed. They're trying to figure out if the government should have made this contract, should have come to this agreement with We. And they're trying to figure out, to get there, whether or not We was acting ethically, make their determinations there. They're not going to pronounce a crime. That is for the RCMP.
I understand your the point you're making. But the members of the committee clearly have indicated that they're conflating the two. And the reality is that law enforcement is a serious business. Allegations that have been made to these agencies, these are serious matters. I mean, ultimately, I believe that at the end of the day, investigation will show that there was nothing amiss and laws were upheld. But these are serious matters, and any Canadian has the right to deal with police matters in front of the police and deal with tax matters in front of Canada Revenue Agency without partisan politicians covering the same ground for their own purposes. So I understand your point about the theoretical separation, but the members aren't separating. They're conflating those matters. And they're the ones who actually put the matters before the law enforcement agencies in the first place.
Okay, Mr. Giorno, I'll leave it there. I'm out of time, but I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Vassy Kapelos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.